here I am, our rabbi walking down the strip and this happens. I mean, what are the odds, Anyway, I'm gonna go because the class is about to start and we're doing online, so. Okay, all right, I'll be home. I love you too. I'll be in a bit. Okay, bye.
You got to go on and be able to read with us.
Oh, you're okay. I can do that on here, right? It's on the Facebook page.
It will be on the Facebook page, but it may be easier on the Zoom link. I will.
Oh, okay.
I will send you to you.
Okay, good.
Okay. Hey, everybody. Good evening. Good evening. Hello.
Hello.
Hi, Joyce.
Yes.
I got your message, and I just didn't have a chance to call you. I didn't have
That's okay.
Again later on, but we'll talk tomorrow.
That was be fine. I'll be here.
You said, but should I call on your cell or on your
On my landline, because the cell is so unreliable. I got a garbled message from you that is the message said this is not understandable.
Well, that's maybe me. It may not be your phone.
No, it wasn't you. It was my phone. I have one bar at most.
Oh.
So my phone doesn't have good reception and the landline works.
Well,
Are you growing a mustache or is that a shadow?
That's a shadow.
Oh, okay, good.
Definitely not a mustache.
I'm glad to hear that. My computer is showing a shadow.
I see the same shadow, Joyce.
It's not a shadow.
Hey, and what's wrong with a mustache?
Yes.
Yeah, what's wrong with the mustache?
I like clean skin.
I listen to Joyce. She knows. No,
Rabbi will take you anyway.
It looks good on it looks good on. Listen, I don't know. I might look good. My wife won't let me. So how do I know?
I can understand that. I didn't let Lee. He grew a Hemingway beard once, and I didn't love it. It aged him, and he's such a handsome man. So I didn't want the beard.
So I get it. I get
Okay.
it. I get it. I told Tracy I don't want her to grow a mustache either. So
I'll go along with that.
Give her a couple more years there, Rabbi.
That's terrible.
No. She's beautiful.
So guys, if it doesn't look like, if I don't have a mustache,
You have a shadow.
If I don't have a mustache, then I'm going to keep letting people in. If I don't have a mustache, I do have a computer thing right now, because this is a virtual screen behind me. This is my virtual library behind me, which I don't do a lot, and I don't normally tell people, but I'm going to show you the real view that I have right now.
Okay, what is the real view?
I'm going to take it off in 1 second, and then you're going to see what
Gonna be for real?
No, this is not. I'm going to show you. I'm going to take off the virtual background. I'm not in Dallas. I'm here.
Oh my God.
So you can see where I am. Well,
I can see where you are.
you can see where I am behind me. So
Lost wages.
I'm here, and I actually this is unusual when I've had I'm gonna take off that virtual background. When I've been away before, which I have, I've been in hotels before. What people didn't know is yesterday, Tuesday class, I was actually in San Diego. I'm anywhere. Where in the world is the rabbi? But I was in San Diego.
Yes.
Where's Waldo?
Exactly. I was in a hotel. I was in a hotel. then.
Well, next week we'll be in Sedona, so
You'll, yeah, that's right. And you'll be in Sedona. You have to put a good background behind you.
I have no background.
But I do want to tell you that in the past, and I want to show you something right now, a picture that I just got to show you. In the past, when I've been away, I haven't had a guest with me, but I have a guest with me today, and I'm very excited because
Ryder?
what? It's why I'm here actually in Vegas.
Ryder.
No. No, I didn't take Ryder to Vegas. No, I'm here in Vegas for a very, very special reason. So I have my friend Scott Volz who's here. I'm gonna show you. Scott, for those who remember Scott, he's actually been in Vegas for quite a while now, but I'm really excited because he is in the room right now, and I can actually show him on his, if I'm not going to unmute you. If you want to turn
Your video isn't on, Scott. We can't see you. We see your name. Hi, Scott.
Hi, Scott.
While we're waiting for Scott, hi, David and Cheryl. I love you.
Hey, Joyce, I love you too.
Thank you.
This came today,
Oh, all right.
The Secret Life of Plants.
You're going to love it. You're
Good.
going to love it. It is amazing.
And I've got Cheryl laying on the couch because she's still recovering from bunion surgery.
Oh, you're looking good, Cheryl. Hey, Scott, we can't see your face yet. We can't even hear you. You've got your phone on. Hello, Scott. Hello, Scott.
Rabbi, you're muted.
Oh, there. I see somebody in the background.
There he is.
Am I here?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you're
Hi,
there.
everybody.
So
Good to
Hi,
see you.
So Scott has moved here. He still works in LA a lot. He's still back there. But actually, Scott, send me the picture because I want everybody to see this picture that just happened. You got to mute.
Scott, are you living in Las Vegas or in Henderson?
Las Vegas.
Okay.
You got to mute. You got to mute. Here, I'll mute.
I got it.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, we can't.
I judge things by their airports, so
Me too.
I know.
So Scott's going to send me this video of
Well, at least we
what
saw
just
his
happened.
face.
What just happened to us. Wait. Scott, you can actually put that on your, I can share that. You can do it from your phone. Share it. No, you gotta share it. Scott's gonna show you what happened. We just walked up the strip,
Yes.
literally 5 minutes ago. And are you able to do it? Because you're a host now. You could.
I'm getting an error message. I'm the co-host now.
Yeah.
Okay. Let me see what I can do. Apologize.
Now we can't even hear you, Rabbi.
Yeah, I muted myself so he can share this video.
Okay.
Maybe he can email it to me. Anyways, we were walking up the strip, and literally right when we walked by, there was an Israel rally that went by.
Oh,
With
wow.
dozens of cars with Israeli flags. And you have to mute from on your sound. That's okay. And it was just crazy because literally, if we hadn't walked out exactly at that moment, we went to see him. I'm gonna show you this picture right now. I can share these pictures.
It was Bashir.
You have to mute your phone.
It says here.
I got it, Joyce.
Okay, here we go. Talk about there's never coincidences.
Right.
But you have to turn down your volume on your phone. Otherwise, it's going to come through.
Texted right now.
Okay, I can show these ones from my phone. So folks, this literally just happened. I got some, so I'm going to put them up. All right.
Oh,
You see the pictures yet? Wait, I'll show you.
yes. I see a balcony.
Here you go. Can you see that?
Yes.
Pictures of Dina's.
Oh, yes.
there.
The cars with the Israeli
This was
flag.
literally
Beautiful
going down the street
America.
when we walked out just now.
I love it.
People
That's
honking their
incredible.
horns, waving. Unbelievable.
Awesome.
What a blessing.
Unbelievable. Yeah. So that just happened literally 15 minutes ago. So that was a
All
pretty
we
good
need now
sign.
is victory.
Yeah, and that's what we were saying as they were going by. And Scott, when our first trip to Israel in 2006, Scott and his son Jordan were there, and it was a great trip, and then it led to lots of other trips that many of the people we're on right now were there. The last couple of days, I posted some videos about Gaza. I'm going to post three more from our new tour guide, Shai, who went in the last few weeks to film on the border with Gaza. Of course, he can't go in, but he kind of does some explanations on he did some explanations on what's going on and where the borders are, and things that he could do from his vantage point from being on the other side. But he was a soldier for many years in Israel and worked as a soldier at about 2005 when Israel gave back Gaza, and he talks about it, and again reminds people that Israel forcibly removed the Jews of Gaza and put them in other places. And in some cases, again, the irony is those people who are in those new places are now being attacked from the place where they used to live, and put them in other places. So that this is another irony, tragedy of the situation that I want to remind people of, that Palestinians, as we know, have had 16, 17 years to build a homeland in that territory, and they've chosen instead to essentially be obsessed with killing Jews. So, this is something that, again, we hope is over soon. We're hoping that Israel will be able to achieve the limited military aims that they have right now, which are essentially to get the Palestinians from stopping to stop the rockets. I mean, I don't know what else you can say. I mean, it's kind of protecting our citizens. It's a pretty limited military objective. So, but obviously people have lost their patience with Israel now. So, as we said before, I'm not sure how many Jews need to die for people to feel like there's proportionality, but I personally don't want to hear the answer to that. And I don't think there needs
I
to
don't
be.
either.
So that's my take on it. And again, we obviously want there to be a quick resolution, and it should be soon. But again, maybe it's the exhausting of the rockets and making sure that there's no, that they just don't have any. So So the good thing, of course, is also Israel hasn't really had to put in ground forces. So that's a big difference from 2014, which
Yes.
some people have talked about and some people haven't, but it obviously limits Israeli casualties substantially. So keep watching, keep strong, and again, keep praying for peace. So this week we're going to look at the second portion in Numbers in Naso, and last week we kind of started with the census taking of the tribes, and then we moved into the Levites who are counted separately. What's interesting, of course, is that so it kind of stops midway, because we read about the first part of the Levites, the Kohathite clan. It's divided into three groups of Levi's three sons. And Kohath is the tribe of Moses and Aaron. And so it's kind of the special part of the Levites. But now we go into the next ones, the Gershonites and the Murarites. And so the census is continuing in this portion. But there's also other stuff in Naso that doesn't really have a direct connection to the counting. So we are continuing with census and with counting, but we're going to move into some other completely different areas of Torah and Torah law. We mentioned last week the Levites. It's interesting that they count them this way because while they're not soldiers, they're in charge of the priestly duties and carrying things for the Mishkan. But we also mentioned, and we actually talked about it yesterday in the Midrash class, because we're actually reading about the Ten Commandments and the golden calf right now. In that scene where the golden calf is destroyed and the people who are leading this idolatrous rebellion are killed, 3,000 people are killed, it's the Levites that kill them. And so the Levites are completely capable of taking up a sword. We mentioned that last week, but we actually looked at it yesterday. They're capable of killing. And we know that Levi himself, their ancestor, killed with Shimon the people of Shechem. And it's not that the Levites aren't capable of defending themselves, of being violent, of being aggressive, but their job is not to take up swords. Their job is to really take the role of being the religious leaders. And as we know, there was a time when the Levites offered sacrifices, not just the Kohanim, but the Levites as well. And then there's that shift during the biblical, early biblical period. But, by the time of King David, there's a shift so that the Levites are not able to offer up sacrifices by themselves, and that the Kohanim have to do it. But it was a shift, and you do see it in the Bible. And again, here you can see that the Levites all have a role to play, but the Kohanim, the priests, do special things. But here we move into the Gershonites. So it begins, Vaydaber Adonai el Moshe lemor, and then it says Naso et Rosh Gershon, which is, again, that same word that we had last week, where at the beginning of Bamidbar, Naso et Rosh, which is to count, to take a census, but literally means lift up the heads. And so that phrase is kind of comes back in the beginning of this portion, the name of the portion, which is to lift up. And again, it is an interesting theme that we don't just count people, or especially when we count people, we do it in a way that makes them feel like they have dignity and not reducing them to a number. So Naso et Rosh really does mean to make people feel strong and to not dehumanize them by counting them. And what's different about, again, the way that the Levites are counted is that they're not counted from 20 years and up as the soldiers are, as the average Israelite. It says here that we record them from the age of 30 years and up to the age of 50, all who are subject to service in the performance of tasks for the tent of meeting. So again, what's different about these people is that they term out of being a soldier. Assumedly, again, as a soldier, you might still be fighting at 50 or 60, which is good to know because I'm now over 50. So if I was a priest or a Levite in those days, I would have been termed out. I would have been too old to function. But we don't do that for rabbis. Maybe we should, but there's a lot of older rabbis. And then the other thing is that interestingly, the soldiers are actually able to assumedly carry on beyond 50, but it is interesting that there is a beginning, a start date, and an end date for the priests. And again, it starts older. It starts not at 20, but at 30. Which, by the way, by that point, those people would have been married. So it is an older date for a reason, which is that these people now are part of have our own family and are really part of society at a different level. So we read what the Kohathites do, which is basically take care of the inner workings of the Mishkan, meaning the ark, the menorah, kind of the really holy vessels, if you will. The other parts of the tribe of the Levites, you'll see what they do. So the Gershonites are as labor and porterage. They shall carry the cloths of the tabernacle, the tent of meeting with its coverings, the covering of dolphin skin, which is again that tahash, that translation that we have oftentimes that it's dolphin skin, but some type of leather that is on top of it, and the screen for the entrance of the tent of meeting. So again, these are the fabrics and the cloths and the things that kind of make up the tent. The hangings of the enclosure, the screen at the entrance of the gate of the enclosure that surrounds the tabernacle, the cords thereof and the altar, and all their service equipment and all their accessories, and they shall perform the service. All the duties of the Gershonites, all their porterage and all their service shall be performed on orders from Aaron and his sons. You shall make them responsible for attending to all their porterage. Those are the duties of the Gershonite clans for the tent of meeting. They shall attend to them under the direction of Itamar, the son of Aaron, the priest. So again, there's the directions that they have. And that is the Gershonites. The second. Now we come to the third. As for the Murarites, you shall record them by the clans of their ancestral house. You shall record them from the age of 30 years up to the age of 50, who are subject to the service and the performance of the duties for the tent of meeting. These are their porterage tasks in connection with their various duties for the tent of meeting: the planks, the bars, the posts, the sockets of the tabernacle, the posts around the enclosure and their sockets, pegs and cords. All these furnishings and their service, you shall list by name the objects that are their porterage tasks. Those are the duties of the Murarite clans pertaining to their various duties of the tent of meeting under the direction of Itamar, son of Aaron the priest. And so you can see what the Murarites do is even more basic, but in a sense also more foundational, is they're carrying the wood and the infrastructure, the real infrastructure of the tent and the Mishkan. They are carrying the poles and the beams and all the things that the coverings go over. So it's almost like they gave it in reverse order. But it's almost, again, as if you're giving directions for it's already set up, and now how do you break it down? You load up all the stuff that the Kohathites do, which is to put away the ark and put away cover it, take the menorah, cover it, do all those things. Now you start taking down the curtains. Now you take down the poles. And so it kind of goes in the order that you break down rather than you set up, which kind of makes sense since they're already set up. And they got set up not by the Levites, at least the first time. But from now on, that's the way it's going to go. That's the way this is going to be laid out. And so it says, so Moses and Aaron and the chieftains of the community recorded the Kohathites by the clans of their ancestral houses, from the age of 30 to the age of 50, all who were subject to service for work relating to the tent of meeting. And here it says those recorded by their clans came to 2750, which is, which again, a little less than 3,000. That was the enrollment of the Kohathite clans, all who were performing duties related to the tent of meeting, whom Moses and Aaron recorded at the command of the Lord through Moses. The Gershonites, who were recorded by the clans of their ancestral house, from the age of 30 to the age of 50, all who were subject to service for the work relating to the tent of meeting, those recorded by the clans of their ancestral house came to 2630. Pretty close. 2750, 2630, pretty close. Then the enrollment of the Gershonite clans, all those performing duties related to the tent of meeting, Moses and Aaron recorded at the command of the Lord. The enrollment of the Murarite clans by the clans of their ancestral house, from the age of 30 years up to the age of 50, All who were subject to service for work relating to the tent of meeting, those recorded by their clans came to 3,200. So it's a little bit more. It's a little bit more than, 20% more or so, or 10, 15%, no, 20, about 15, 20% more than the other tribes. But the other clans, I should say, the subgroups. But again, you can see when it kind of all comes out, it's about 9,000 people that are 30 to 50, not 9,000 Levites, but 9,000 that are in that age bracket from 30 to 50 who can perform the duties. So that was the enrollment of the Murarite clans, which Moses and Aaron recorded at the command of the Lord. All the Levites who Moses, Aaron, and the chieftains of Israel recorded by the clans of their houses from the age of 30 to 50, all who were subject to duties of service and porterage relating to the tent of meeting, those recorded came to 8,580. Each one was given responsibility for his service and porterage at the command of the Lord through Moses. And each was recorded at the Lord as the Lord had commanded Moses. So again, each one of those people had responsibilities, had some part of something to do within this. And you can imagine you have 8,500 people that are helping out. It's quite an undertaking. It's quite a lot of work that's being done by these people. But it seems as though there was a little bit of work for everybody to do, and probably got done a lot quicker because you have 8,500 people. But people had to obviously know where they're going, know how they're moving, and again, the work for putting up a Mishkan tabernacle definitely can get done when you have that many people. When you have, 2,500 to 3,000 people doing each part of this work. And maybe, again, you can make the argument that to some extent, the reason that it got, I don't know if the Kohathites are going to get the best job anyways, because they're Moses and Aaron's group. But you could say the Gershonites, maybe because they were larger, got to do the foundational work of putting up the posts, because you can make the argument that takes a lot of work. Carrying and then putting up the posts, would probably be fairly time consuming. I would guess, I would imagine, compared to hanging the curtains, which would take a while. But again, you got to think that putting the posts into the ground, attaching the posts to each other, it's quite an extensive and time consuming thing. So it probably needed the largest group, if you will. And again, probably the easiest, but in some cases the most distinguished, the Kohathites, who actually got to put the stuff in their proper places after the house was set up. They did the decoration, if you will. They got to put the objects there. So that is chapter 4, which again really is a continuation of the first 3 chapters of Numbers. And then chapter 4 is again, this numbering and again, then it moves into duties. So now we get into chapter 5, and this is going to change a little bit, as you'll see. The Lord spoke to Moses, saying, "Instruct the Israelites to move from camp anyone with an eruption or discharge and anyone defiled by a corpse." Sounds a little bit like Tazri and Matzorah that we read about back in Leviticus just a month and a half or so ago. In the middle of Leviticus, we have that tract on physical health, and we read about women menstruating. We read about the skin disease, and we read about corpses, and we also read about eruptions. It says, "Remove male and female alike, put them outside the camp, so that they do not defile the camp of those in whose midst I dwell." So again, we quarantine people, but we quarantine sick people. We don't quarantine everybody. We quarantine people who are sick. And this is, again, sounds pretty straightforward, and used to kind of be straightforward, that when you see people that are sick and you don't want them to infect everybody else, you did it. And it says the Israelites did so, putting them outside the camp as the Lord had spoken to Moses. So the Israelites did. So now, and again, you could say that some of this is, well, you can maybe find the connections as we read this. The Lord spoke to Moses, saying, "Speak to the Israelites. When a man or woman commits any wrong toward a fellow man, thus breaking faith with the Lord, and that person realizes his guilt, he shall confess the wrong that he has done. He shall make restitution in the principal amount and add 1/5 to it, giving it to him whom he has wronged. So this penalty, which we've read about before, this is this 20% penalty fee. So you restore, you make whole, and then you have to pay a penalty, a restitution and a penalty. If the man has no kinsman to whom restitution can be made, the amount repaid shall go to the Lord for the priest, in addition to the ram of expiation, with which expiation is made on his behalf. So if you can't give it to him or to anybody who was related to him, you give it to the temple, you give it to the priest. But remember, you're also doing a sacrifice. So the Torah is telling us it doesn't count towards your sacrifice. You do that sacrifice to a sacrifice of a lamb, and you can also make the restitution there. So it says, so to any gift from among the sacred donations that the Israelites offer shall be the priests, and each shall retain his sacred donation. Each priest shall keep what is given to him. Seems pretty straightforward. It seems like that makes sense. The priests get to keep what's given to them. That's what you expect the priest to do. The Lord spoke to Moses, saying, speak to the Israelite people and say to them, if any man's wife has gone astray and broken faith with him, in that a man has had carnal relations with her unbeknown to her husband, and she keeps secret the fact that she has defiled herself without being forced, and there is no witness against her, but a fit of jealousy comes over him, and he is wrought about the wife who has defiled herself, or if a fit of jealousy comes over one, and he is wrought up about his wife, although she has not defiled herself, the man shall bring his wife to the priest, and he shall bring as an offering for her 1/10 of an ephah of barley flour. No oil shall be poured upon it, and no frankincense shall be laid on it, which is what normally happens with the flour. So that's why it says it. For it is a meal offering of jealousy, a meal offering of remembrance, which recalls wrongdoing. So now we're moving into something that maybe was connected to the idea before it, which was when somebody is making restitution. Except here, again, it's very clearly a marriage issue, and also obviously all the attendant parts of this, which are the emotions, the jealousy, the feelings of hurt, all the damage that's done. Now, what you're going to see in this discussion in this Torah portion is a recognition that maybe something happened or maybe something didn't happen. But at the end of the day, if a man feels that his wife has cheated on him, which is what it's talking about, then that there has to be some type of way of allowing the couple, if they'd like to, if they want to stay together. And this is what it's talking about. It's talking about keeping people together and not having them break up and get divorced over it. Could they have been divorced over it? Absolutely. The Torah allows for divorce. But what we have here is this desire to create some type of situation so a couple does not have to break up if there has been infidelity. Now, again, it is a woman who's cheated on her husband. It's not the other direction. So, we can talk about it, and we've talked about it before, but of course the reality is if a man is allowed to be married to more than one woman, which he was during the biblical period. We don't know how common it was by this period. We really don't. We don't think it was that common. But since it was legal, you can't make it illegal for him to have, relations with his other wife. So this is, as you read it, it's a woman who's been accused of cheating on her husband, of being, unfaithful. And that's what the sense of this is too, is that the faith has been broken and the husband is jealous and angry about it. Look, people have pointed out that maybe the reason that we have this little discussion about eruptions at the beginning of it is because that it also can lead to sexually transmitted diseases. So, people looking at the context, the full context of this, Say, well, maybe that's why that little business about eruptions is there at the beginning. Are these ideas connected? You can make a decision after we read the whole, when we finish the Torah portion, because there's some other things here too, which may or may not be connected to this concept. But this discussion about infidelity and the law of the Sotah is really, really interesting from the standpoint of the anthropological and cultural reasons why these things were done. But really interesting to me is the fact that this all is predicated on the fact that people don't want to get divorced. Because if they want to get divorced, none of this has to happen. It's over. But this is specifically to allow a couple to move on after something like this had happened, or maybe didn't happen. You saw it could have happened. She has or has not defiled herself. It says right there, as he wrought up about his wife, although she has not defiled herself. So the priest shall bring her forward and have her stand before the Lord. Oh, my wife is texting me right now. I always want to make sure. That would be really bad timing if she just texted me that she's having an affair. That I just wanted to, she didn't. It has nothing to do with that. I want to make it very clear. But that would be weird. She sometimes watches, but that would be weird, very weird. All right. I'm the one in Vegas anyways. So I don't know what that means. So this is the ritual of Sotah. The priest shall take sacred water in an earthen vessel, and taking some of the earth that is on the floor of the tabernacle, yes, earth from the floor, the priest shall put it into the water. After he has made the woman stand before the Lord, the priest shall bear the woman's head and place upon her hands the meal offering of remembrance, which is a meal offering of jealousy. So it puts the barley, the meal in her hands. And in the priest's hands shall be the water of bitterness that induces the spell. Okay?
Mhm.
The priest shall adjure the woman, saying to her, if no man has lain with you, if you have not gone astray in defilement while married to your husband, be immune to harm from this water of bitterness that induces the spell. So again, the word marim, that this is the waters of bitterness. That's what the waters are called. That's what the waters are called. But if you've gone astray while married to your husband and have defiled yourself, if a man other than your husband has had carnal relations with you, here the priest shall administer the curse of adjuration to the woman. As the priest goes on to say to the woman, may the Lord make you a curse, an imprecation among your people, as the Lord causes your thigh to sag and your belly to distend. Yep. So this is a curse. May this water that induces the spell enter your body, causing the belly to distend and the thigh to sag. And the woman shall say, Amen, Amen, which is, I agree, right? She says the words, Amen, Amen. That's true. The priest shall put these curses down in writing and rub it off in the water of bitterness. So in addition to the water, to the dirt from the floor of the tabernacle, you also now have the writing of what was just said rubbed off. The ink is on pieces of parchment and they rub off in that into the water. And he is to make the woman drink the water of bitterness that induces the spell, so that the spell-inducing water may enter into her and to bring on bitterness. That's what it says, to bring on bitterness. That's the mar. This is bitter waters. The woman is called a sotah. That is the unfaithful woman is called a sotah, but the water is called the waters of bitterness. Then the priest shall take from the woman's hand the meal offering of jealousy, elevate the meal offering before the Lord, and present it on the altar. So she's drunk the water. She's had the meal offering in her hands, now put on the altar. So there's a connection here between a sacrifice and the what's going on with her body. The priest shall scoop out of the meal offering a token part of it and turn it into smoke on the altar. Last, he shall make the woman drink the water. So there you go. So you have a combination of sacrifice. People forget that sometimes, but there's not just a thing that goes in her. There's a thing that's burned up to God as well to assumedly make the magic happen. Once he has made her drink the water, if she has defiled herself by breaking faith with her husband, the spell-inducing water shall enter her to bring on bitterness, so that her belly shall distend and her thigh shall sag, and the woman shall become a curse among her people. But if the woman has not defiled herself and is pure, she shall be unharmed and be able to retain seed. So you can see that part of this is not just that she looks differently or that she has a distended, something distended in any internal stuff. It's also that she cannot have children if this would work. I mean, some people say, well, that seems like natural, but not necessarily. Based on what we saw already, this part of it's also there, which is that she's not going to be able to have children. This is the ritual in cases of jealousy when a woman goes astray. And that's the word again, the root. Asher tachat isha. This is what a woman who's going astray or goes astray is the proper conjugation of it. Yeah, it's present tense. But it also says, or when a fit of jealousy comes over a man and he is wrought up over his wife, the woman shall be made to stand before the Lord, and the priest shall carry out all this ritual with her. The man shall be clear of guilt, but that woman shall suffer for her guilt. So this is the law of Sotah. We don't know how often it was done. The Talmud, written hundreds of years later, assumes that it was done. There's actually a tractate of the Talmud, section of the Talmud called Sotah. So it is pretty important. Now, obviously, that's not all that tractate's about. There's a lot in the tractate Sotah that has nothing to do with women, infidelity, anything. It has lots of other things in it in Sotah. There's a lot of tangents in it. But the rabbis were concerned with this issue of family. And so what do we say about this? So there's one possibility that we definitely want to say was that it seems like magic, but it worked. And so it somehow the ritual happened. Some people have said that it brought on psychosomatic reaction that would cause a woman to something weird would happen to her because she had a feeling of guilt, and going through this ritual would cause her to either admit it or be scared about it and then admit it, or again, cause her to react psychosomatically. And it happens that people have illnesses that are brought on by psychosis. So it is possible. It's also possible, as many people have said, and we always say too, that this ritual is meant to help a woman get out of a situation where, at the end of the day, this is to get her out of the situation and to let her not be in trouble. And that this is kind of a way to help families move beyond the infidelity. We don't know. It hasn't been done in a long time. There's actually a book called Sotah written by Naomi Ragan, who wrote a book about, she's an Orthodox Jewish woman who wrote about infidelity or, accusations of infidelity in an Orthodox family. People have always been imagined what it must have been like for there to be a public ritual to kind of create a a situation where a woman would be, stigmatized, the scarlet letter, if you will. But in reality, and again, it says the man shall be clear of guilt, but the woman shall suffer for her guilt. Basically, if it works, yeah, it makes sense. The guy didn't do anything, and his wife is now punished. But again, a lot of us say, but how often did that happen? How often did the woman actually get cursed with this type of affliction? I mean, we don't know. But was this a way to, quite frankly, compassionately absolve a woman from a situation where she otherwise could be hurt, abused, put to death even? And is this a way to actually save her? So difficult to know. We definitely have this part of chapter 5 of Numbers, and it's sometimes when people have this Torah portion in Naso to comment on, they feel like they have to comment on it. Some people don't like to even discuss it and like to move beyond it and say this is just some weird anthropological ritual that hopefully never was done, but if it was done, it's a retention of some kind of weird witchcraft. But it's part of the Torah portion, and keep in mind, is it connected to other parts of the Torah portion that we're about to read? Are there connections between these laws and these? Again, it starts off with the counting, but then it goes into some very different things. So now we move into chapter 6, and this is also now for something completely different, as they say, Monty Python. Or maybe not. The Lord spoke to Moses, saying, "Speak to the Israelites and say to them, if anyone, man or woman, explicitly utters a Nazarite's vow to set himself apart for the Lord," says to set himself, "he shall abstain from wine and any other intoxicant. He shall not drink vinegar of wine or any other intoxicant. Neither shall he drink anything in which grapes have been steeped, nor eat grapes fresh or dried." And I would also say probably don't go to Vegas. It's probably not a good place to go if you're a Nazarite. But as you can see, Nazirites not only have to give up intoxicants, wine, the most common, frequently drunk intoxicant. And by the way, as we know, not just drunk for alcohol consumption, for feeling merry, but for bottom line, that's how people ate every meal, with some wine. But they're not even allowed to eat they're not allowed to have grape juice, and they're not allowed to have grapes. They're not allowed to have anything that has grapes in it. So this is for a Mediterranean community, you're taking out a huge part of your diet, major part of your staple, of the staples of the Mediterranean diet, and very difficult to have a meal without these things. How often now did this happen? It's also very, very interesting that we have a whole tractate in the Talmud about the Nazarites as well. And again, it has lots of other stuff that's not about the Nazarites, but this is another part of Jewish life, Jewish law that the rabbis definitely commented on and learned from. But I will tell you, by the time of the Talmud, they did not want people to be Nazarites. They did not want people to make vows at all. Didn't want them to. And so there is a lot about this in the Talmud that's not just about Nazarites, but about making any type of vows. This one seems pretty intense, as we're going to see. So they make a vow. They're set themselves apart from the Lord. That's the way it starts. It starts with, I'm making a vow to God. And now these rules are now incumbent on the person who makes the vow. So it's not like Lent, where people say, I want to give up something, that I like a lot during Lent. I'm going to give up wine, or I'm going to give up chocolate. This isn't what they're talking about. They're talking about people who say they're going to dedicate their lives to God, or do something special for God. And now this is the way you do it. This is the system. This is the plan that you have once you say you're going to do something like this. So it's not, oh, you can give up wine, you can do, no, this is what you do when you say that you're making this vow. You give up wine. So again, you can't pick and choose what you're going to do. That's one part of it. Throughout his term as a Nazarite, he may not eat anything that's obtained from the grapevine or even seeds or skin. Throughout his term of his vow as a Nazarite, no razor shall touch his head. It shall remain consecrated until the completion of his term as a Nazarite of the Lord, the hair of his head being left to grow untrimmed. So, a couple things that we see here, that there are terms on these things, right? These are not forever, assumedly, and they're done willingly, or people decided to do this. Now, the most famous Nazarite is Samson, and he's famous not so much because he didn't drink alcohol, which again, I guess it's pretty important he didn't drink alcohol, because he made a lot of bad decisions. He could have blamed it on the alcohol, especially when it came to women. Now, his problem is, and what we know about from him, his hair, which becomes the way that he eventually gets destroyed, right? Because Delilah, convinces him to tell the secret, and then she tells the Philistines, they come and cut his hair and take away his strength, and then he's able to be captured. Now, he's a Nazarite. He's the most famous Nazarite. And actually, every year when we read this Torah portion, as we're doing this week, on Shabbos, this Saturday, the Haftarah that's being read is the story of Samson, Shimshon, from Judges, chapter 13. It's a great story. It's a not a great ending, but it's a very interesting and powerful story. It's the closest thing we have in the Bible to a Greek tragedy, very, very much so. There's other tragedies in the Torah, don't get me wrong, but those tragedies seem to be more Jewish tragedies, if you will, where things kind of go haywire. They get fixed a little bit. They're not perfect, but we move on. Samson's is nuts because it's just like one crazy situation after another. And of course, Samson's final act is killing the Philistines as he kills himself, which, is not, in Judaism, we don't encourage suicide. So Samson's story is not a great story from the standpoint of, he's heroic in some ways, but he's also very tragic. And he's, as much as there's things that, we look at him as an inspiration, he made a lot of bad choices, a lot of bad decisions. And we definitely would say we don't want people to live a life like that. As much as he's, again, heroic, his strength is amazing. No one would ever assume that this guy was as strong as he was. All those kinds of things that we talk about when we look at Samson. And again, read the story from Judges if you'd like, because you may not remember it and you may not realize what's really happening in that story. A lot of us have seen the movie. The movies over time have gotten worse and worse. So they started out, the classic one is actually the one that was done, 60 years ago, right? They've gotten progressively worse as time has gone on. I don't know if it's because people just don't know what to do with it, but the Victor Mature version of Samson is still one of the better, in some ways, better biblical movies. That's not the Ten Commandments. I mean, there's the Ten Commandments, it's head and shoulders above everything, but it was one of the most popular and one of the best, seen biblical stories. It's really a tough one because it's a very troubling story. It's hard to believe that it's in the Bible to some extent, because again, it's so Greek. It's so kind of goes against our Jewish values, and the whole story is from start to finish. But what's so amazing about, when you think about it, and why we talk about it here at Naso, because Nazirites and Samson they go hand in hand. It's that he never had a choice in the matter. Samson didn't say, I'm going to be a Nazarite. He didn't say it when he was a little kid. Hey, when I grow up, I want to be a Nazarite. He didn't make a decision as an adult. Oh, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to serve God and be a Nazarite. His parents are told when he's born, before he's born, you're going to have a baby. You couldn't have a baby. You're very glad now, right? You have a baby, but he's going to be a Nazarite. And the angel that comes to Samson's mother and tells him that puts in motion this situation where the guy didn't have a choice, which again, you can make the argument is not really a Jewish way to go on the way the stories normally go. He didn't have a choice. Samuel, the prophet, also is dedicated to God by his mother, because again, she couldn't have a baby. And when she finally gets pregnant, she says, I'm dedicating the child to God. Samuel definitely has a better story, has a better ending and a better life. And the middle was good too, but it's not just that they're Nazirites, or not just that they're dedicated to God. There is that they don't have a choice in the matter. The rabbis recognize later on, by the time they're writing about this in the Midrash and in the Talmud, they recognize that these are not usually good things to do. Giving up things, even willingly, even for holy purpose, doesn't usually work out well for people. To be an ascetic, to be a monk, or to be someone who gives up things is not encouraged in Judaism. And look, I'll get into arguments about with my friend, my Chabad rabbi friend, Tony will tell me, God doesn't want us to be vegetarian. I mean, I disagree with him from that, but the feeling that people in the religious world have had for a long time, that it's not our job to give up things, comes from the rabbis' take on these stories, on the Nazarites, and on their own experiences, probably their early kinds of experiences with early Christian monks, and saying, this isn't good behavior. This is not stuff that people are supposed to do. We're not supposed to give up things. If God wants us to eat these things and do these things, then us giving them up, who do we think we are to give them up? And so there's this kind of almost this pretension in doing these things. So, and I will tell you, there are a lot of very pretentious vegetarians. But I will tell you that there is I came to the decision not as a decision to give things up in the world and to renounce things that I enjoy. Though I've told you before, I was a big meat eater, and believe me, I'm not wasting away without my meat. But the reason that Judaism doesn't wholeheartedly embrace vegetarianism is because of this issue of, can we really give up things that God has placed in our control to eat? And so I'm going to be 100%, open and honest with you when I say that's the challenge that people have. We know that it was a challenge because the rabbis specifically talk about Jews when the temple was destroyed by the Romans 2,000 years ago, their contemporaries. There were many Jews that had stopped eating meat and stopped drinking alcohol. Now, again, it doesn't say Nazirites have to give up meat, but there were Jews at the time who had given up meat and wine and alcohol, which again, two staples of the diet, Mediterranean diet. It's not you had to eat meat every day, but people ate meat pretty regularly or once a week, whatever it was. How do you do that? Why do you do that? They gave it up because they said, once the temple is destroyed, we are not going to have any more enjoyment. They purposely said, we're not going to have any enjoyment. And the rabbi said, that's not the way to live. And what happened is that they not only stopped eating meat and stopped having and drinking wine, they stopped having sex. They stopped procreating. And the rabbi said, look, if we be engaged in this behavior, we're going to be out of the world. We're taking ourselves out of existence if we do this kind of stuff. And so asceticism in Judaism was always tempered by this kind of idea, the counter idea, which is that we're in this world to enjoy the gifts that God has placed within our grasp. And to give them up, we don't have the we don't have the ability, we don't have the holiness really to do it. And to say that we do is really kind of elevating yourself above what God wants of us, which is to be human beings. So I will tell you that that's one of the areas of difference between, again, people who who've decided to become vegetarian. I will tell you that's not why I did it, and that's not why I didn't think I was being holier by being a vegetarian. But the Talmud does talk about it, and there are other groups, religious groups, that choose different things to give up. Interestingly, Christian priests did not give up alcohol. On the contrary, some of the greatest alcohol in Western history, as you know, was made by monks, right? Whether it was champagne, whether it was brandy, Benedictine, whatever. These were staples of the Christian world, and the priests, for the most part, didn't give up alcohol. There were Eastern Orthodox ascetics who gave up alcohol and who gave up meat, and who seemed to be inspired by the Nazirites as well, of not cutting their hair. There were people that would stand on sit on top of a pole and never come down, and people would give them barely enough food so that they could just survive on the top of a pole. I mean, there were these types of ascetic traditions existed in Christianity, and it probably at some time with Judaism, because again, the Essenes, the people who lived in the Dead Sea Scrolls, also did some very weird stuff, including, it seems, at least some of them abstained from sex. So the Nazarite laws, are they connected with the Sotah? Are they connected with some of what we read about? Maybe, but cutting your hair also part of the rules. Throughout the term he has set for the Lord, he shall not go in where there is a dead person. Sounds a lot like the priests. And this is where we see that this is very similar to, again, how someone could kind of be a priest without being a priest. Even if his father or mother or his brother or sister should die, he must not defile himself for them, since hair set apart for his God is upon his head. So the hair becomes God's to some extent, and he's not allowed to go to a funeral, even his father or mother or his immediate family, which, as you saw, the priests are allowed to go for their immediate family. These guys are not even allowed to go for their immediate family. Throughout his term as a Nazarite, he is consecrated to the Lord. If a person dies suddenly near him, so you're going to say, well, what happens if somebody just dies in front of him? He didn't have any chance to get away with him. Defiling his consecrated hair, he shall shave his head on the day he becomes clean. He shall shave it on the 7th day. So 7 days after he comes into contact, he shaves his hair. On the 8th day, he shall bring 2 turtle doves or 2 pigeons to the priest at the entrance of the tent of meeting. The priest shall offer one as a sin offering and the other as a burnt offering, and make expiation on his behalf for the guilt that he incurred through the corpse. That same day he shall reconsecrate his head. So it's almost again like the hair came in contact with the dead. That's God's, that's holy, that's priestly. Shave it off and you start again. It's not that he's out. It's not like he's out of his Nazarite vow time. He's still in the Nazarite vow time. He's still got to do what he said he was going to do for however long he said he was going to do it. And again, it seems as though this is not a Nazarite vow that people would do for 2 weeks at a time. Why did people do this? Well, let's finish a little bit more and we'll talk about it. That same day he shall reconsecrate his head and rededicate it to the Lord his term as a Nazarite. And he shall bring a lamb in its first year as a penalty offering. The previous period shall be void, since this consecrated hair was defiled. So the time up until that point doesn't count. So if he said he was going to do it for 7 years, but that's in his first year. So it's not like he did it for 6 years and then didn't do it. It doesn't count. It's all null and void. Folks, this is again very hard to do. And again, it's not even just that they're always around dead people, but it must have been very hard for people to do this vow. This is the ritual for the Nazarite. on the day that his term as Nazarite is completed, he shall be brought to the entrance of the tent of meeting. As his offering to the Lord, he shall present one male lamb in its first year without blemish for a burnt offering, one ewe lamb in its first year without blemish for a sin offering, and one ram without blemish for an offering of well-being. So he basically covers all his bases, right? The well-being offering, the burnt offering, the sin offering, all of these offerings are being brought at the end of his time. A basket of unleavened cakes of choice flour with oil mixed in, and unleavened wafers spread with oil, and the proper meal offerings and libations. The priest shall present them before the Lord and offer the sin offering and the burnt offering. So the priest does those two. Then it says he shall offer the ram of sacrifice of well-being to the Lord. Together with the basket of unleavened cakes, the priest shall offer the meal offerings and the libations. And so it really does seem that the final act of his leaving, well, it's not the final act, final sacrifice is the sacrifice of well-being. So that last type of offering, the shlema, that is now offered. Then the Nazarite shall shave his consecrated hair at the entrance of the tent of meeting, and take the locks of his consecrated hair and put them on the fire that is under the sacrifice of well-being. So again, technically speaking, the hair is part of the sacrifice. But it's almost like saying again that hair was a symbol of his dedication, his consecration to God. And that's what the word is. I mean, this is hair that has been dedicated to God. And yeah, any questions, any comments, anything that people want to make a mention of? Well, the priest shall take the shoulder of the ram when it has been boiled, one unleavened cake from the basket and one unleavened wafer, and place them in the hands of the Nazarite after he has shaved his consecrated hair. The priest shall elevate them as an elevation offering before the Lord. And then this shall be a sacred donation for the priest, in addition to the breast elevation offering and the thigh of a gift offering. After that, the Nazarite may drink wine.
I have a question.
By the way, yeah, Joyce, yeah.
We've been reading a lot of information. A lot of it has to do with what was going on in the desert with the Mishkan and how you do the Mishkan and then what you do with the Nazarite. None of this is taking a lot of the Torah, which is handed down for years and years and years since. Why is so much of that information that is not relevant to the years and years and years that have gone on since those years in the desert? Why is that so important still in the Torah?
So look, it's a good question because again, what's the relevance to us today? That's why I think that, one of the things that we think about is why we don't, as Jews, make these kinds of vows to God. When I read this, the thing that, number one, I think of Samson, and I think about what a disaster that was. I think about the rabbis in the Talmud doing everything they can to discourage people from doing this. I think about that's the historical context to me. And what I take away from it is that Judaism has really, again, encouraged people not to take on vows of abstinence, really at all. But what it gets to is this other issue, which is why do people do this? What's at the basis for this?
Okay, so you go back underneath.
By the way, I just want to point out, it says after that, the Nazarite may drink wine. It doesn't say he may. It actually says he does, but maybe the may is implied there. I don't see that. I don't know. That must have been a weird thing of drinking now after you haven't. Why do people do this? This is the interesting question to me. The most relevant question about the Nazarites to me is, why do people do this? And the issue really does come down to the the magical thinking that people do all the time, which is that if I can only not do this, then God will give me something in return.
Okay.
And this to me is something that almost everybody thinks about. I'm going to make a deal with God. And if I give this up, and remember, these aren't just deal. I mean, this was like, okay, these are the terms of the deal. The Nazarite deal is something assumedly that people did and followed. This is the recipe for it. Like, this is the plan. If you're a Nazarite, it just told us what to do. I would
It's
say,
relevant through the ages.
yeah, and I think it's still relevant for people
Okay.
because here's the thing. If there is a way to do this, and the Torah basically says there is, why do people, well, first of all, we can't do it anymore because the temple was destroyed. But I think it gets to that question of what do people do today when they want to make a deal with God? What kinds of things do people do when they engage in this magical thinking? And to me, that's the connection to Sotah, which is also magical thinking. So we all are trying to find formulas, and we're trying to find rituals, and we're trying to find ways of creating better situations for ourselves. If I dedicate myself to God, then I will get, if I do X, I'll get Y in return. And that to me is the most relevant. Now, it doesn't say for sure that that's what happened here. People could have become Nazarites because something bad had happened to them and they wanted to make up for it. They had done something really bad. It's possible. In which case, then maybe it's a form of redemption. It's a form of forgiveness. It's a form of atonement. But it's also very possible that, again, people did these vows in order to maybe have children, in order to, have success in life, to start to what are people going to give up? Why do they give up things? That's a big question. It's a big question. It's not one that I have a real easy answer for, and I've spent a lot of time thinking about it, because this is really where the question of what happens in our brains that makes us think that if we give up something that we'll be happier, or that something good will happen to us, or that
there's another part too, Rabbi. One is like what you're talking about is like a quid pro quo, just for that. If I give up, then I'm more pure for the Lord. But there's another aspect of a cleansing, like a 12-step program. So I see that there's like different motivations possible.
It is possible. It is possible that I think you're right. I think you're right, dude. I think that there was a point where people did look at this as some type of atonement when they had the temple, because they clearly offered sacrifices for the same way. And again, when the temple was out of use, when it was destroyed, you couldn't do the Sotah ritual. You couldn't do the Nazarite ritual anymore, because there's no way for you to go into the rule, to go into it, and there's no way to go out of it. There's no tabernacle. There's no place for the Sotah to have bitter waters created. These things all become to some extent impossible. But the desires to do this, the reasons, the impulses that people had, they didn't go away. It's interesting that Judaism channeled it into different ways. Look, we've talked about this before. There was a time when Jews would fast maybe 3 times a week, literally didn't eat anything, not Yom Kippur, not 3 times a year, 3 times a week. There was a tradition that we know of during the Middle Ages where Jewish men would not eat 3 days a week. And this was a very common practice. And they were married. These weren't unmarried guys that, they didn't have families. These were guys that were engaged in Torah study, that were trying to be holy, and felt that this would bring them to be holy. They're called Hasidim. They're not Hasidic Jews. It's the same word. It's the same word chesed, which means loving kindness, piety as well, but kind of loving kindness and piety aren't really the same, but we really call them people that were being pious. But these Hasidim from the Middle Ages, from literally 1,000 years ago, engaged in these fasting rituals, and they did it to be holier. They did it to be free of sin. They did it to elevate them, to elevate their spirit. And it's amazing to think that was like a major part of Jewish life. And it wasn't like one group of people. It wasn't like it happened in one synagogue or one community. This was throughout it wasn't throughout the Jewish world. It was primarily in the Central European area, the area of Ashkenaz in Germany and France. But the fact that these people were regularly doing it, and then people knew that it was such a common practice that they just kind of assumed in some cases that people were doing it, it's pretty wild. Because when the rabbinic writings, it's not in the Talmud, it was after the Talmud, but when the rabbinic writings talk about it, it's in some cases, or sometimes when they're writing about it, it's like a foregone conclusion that people are doing it. So people have done it. It's just not done so much today. And I would say that, the more pious Jews around us, even though they're, they don't eat non-kosher food, they eat other stuff, and they will make a point of saying, look, we don't give up alcohol, we don't give up things that give us enjoyment, because God put it there for us to enjoy. So there is this, but again, why do people give up things? What motivates them? As David said, sometimes it's because they want to bring out some atonement. They want to prove to themselves that it's possible for them to do it. But I think in a very large portion of society where people are doing this, it becomes a magical act. It's a obsessive compulsive act. And it's not something that, again, Judaism doesn't want us to go down that road, because then all we're doing is trying to make connections between, making God do magic for us. And so this is real close to it. I mean, this is about as close as they're going to get. And maybe that's why they go through, again, these very elaborate and detailed rituals for it, so that people just didn't do anything when it came to these kind of these vows. Again, by the time of the rabbis, they're saying, you can't do it because there's no temple, but don't do it. But you see it even in the Torah. Let's take a look. Such is the obligation of a Nazarite, except that he who vows an offering to the Lord of what he can afford beyond his Nazaritic requirements must do exactly according to the vow that he has made beyond his obligation as a Nazarite. So again, he may have gone even above and beyond. This is definitely something that I've been thinking a lot about. I've been thinking a lot about why people do this, and what are they trying to get from God when they do it. Anyways, let's look at this next section, which is really, really famous. This is the most famous part of the Torah, and maybe to some extent, maybe it comes right after the laws of the Nazarite, because look what happens here. The Lord spoke to Moses, "Speak to Aaron and his sons. Thus shall you bless the people of Israel. Say to them, Yivarechecha Adonai v'yishmerecha. The Lord bless you and protect you. Ya'er Adonai panav elecha v'yichuneka. The Lord deal kindly and graciously with you. Yisa Adonai panav elecha v'yasem lecha shalom. And the Lord bestow his favor upon you and grant you peace." So this is the threefold blessing, the blessing of the Kohanim. It says, thus they shall link my name with the people of Israel, and I will bless them. So this threefold blessing is the blessing we call the Birkat Kohanim, the priestly blessing, and the blessing of our tradition that we still do. We do it every Shabbos for our family. We do it oftentimes for people at their bar and bat mitzvahs. We say it in some cultures and some traditions. Christian traditions have even say it at a funeral. But these words, this threefold blessing, has become one of the most popular and most famous parts of the Torah, in that it is the oldest blessing that we have that's been in constant use for the people. And again, when we look at it in Hebrew, it's a three words in the first verse. There's five words in the second verse. You got Aaron Adonai, Panal, 3, 5, and you can guess what the next one is. 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It's 3, 5, 7. And it seems again like that structure is pretty significant. It's not a blessing that the priests give because they're priests in their name. They give it in God's name. They don't say, I bless you. It says, the Lord will bless you. The Lord will deal kindly with you. And this to me seems like not the magic, but the actual blessing. And what is, and not when someone's trying to cause God to do what they want, but to have someone else bless you. And what are they asking for? They're asking for God to protect you, to give you blessing, to protect you, to give you the word chen, or hunecha. That word is the root of it is chen, which is grace. That God will be gracious to you, and the literal phrase here is God will turn his face to you. That's the Ya'ir Adonai Panav, that God's face is turned to you, which is dealing kindly. It's a translation based on the meaning of it, which again is not the literal translation. The literal translation is, may the Lord's face turn towards you and be gracious to you. That's what the King James English says. The last phrase also says Yisadonai Panav, which is, may God lift up his face to you and bless you. What's interesting about this word here, Yisa, which I pointed out at the beginning of the Torah portion, Naso means to lift up. And in this case, God lifts up his face to you. So just as God wants our faces, our heads to be lifted up, God's face is lifted to us. And of course, the last word is to give you peace, to give you wholeness, to give you a sense of balance and completeness. This is what the blessing finishes with. God giving you, turning toward you, lifting you up, looking at, kind of facing you and giving you that radiance, giving you that blessing. So this threefold blessing, we found it in the earliest archaeological digs that we have around Israel. If you want to know what the earliest part of the Torah that we've ever found, it's this threefold blessing. And we found it about 30 years ago. We found an amulet, silver amulet, that's about 2,800 years old, that has this on it. And it's in the Israel Museum. And it is proof that this prayer, so it's older than the Dead Sea Scrolls, significantly older than the Dead Sea Scrolls. It's older than any other fragment that we found. It's the earliest intact words from the Bible that we have, is this threefold blessing. And think about how amazing this is. This is something that probably someone had around their neck as an amulet, as a protection, that somebody walked around Jerusalem 2,800 years ago with these words on their body that are familiar to us today as again, it was to this man 2,800 years ago. So as Scott just said, it's not a coincidence. The oldest part of the Torah that we've ever found, folks. I'm telling you, again, maybe we found, names or words on a coin that are around that age, not much older anyways. But the only phrases where we can say That's a phrase from the Bible. That's more than one word or a name. This is it.
Beautiful. This is
And
beautiful.
it's very powerful to see it in the Israel Museum. It's one of the treasures that Israel has that they've, recovered, and that people can again talk about miracles, to be able to know that these words have been said for literally thousands of years from one person to the next. So originally it was the priests that do it. It says right here, this is the way you link my name to the people of Israel. So it's an amazing part of the Torah. And again, arguably it's the most famous part of this Torah portion. When people turn to this portion and they say, well, what do we derive out of it? What do we have? Well, we have this phrase, which again, it's a beautiful thing to say. It's a beautiful prayer. And again, we call it the Kohanim, the blessing of the Kohanim, because it says that Aaron and his sons are supposed to bless the people. So again, we continue that blessing, and we do it even though we're not priests. We're going to do it. Now, anybody else has any other points or questions? I don't want to rush through it, but I do want to get to this last chapter.
Beautiful.
This is the last chapter of Naso. And what's so interesting about this chapter, does someone want to tell me before I read it? Like, probably Mike Schwartz knows this. What's so interesting about this last chapter, Mike? Anybody? Is Mike still there? Mike, are you there still? You're so quiet. Are you watching the Dodger game, Mike? Tell me the truth.
Yeah, I am. I don't like this last chapter, so I have nothing to say about it.
You don't have anything to say, but what do you know about it?
Not much.
Okay, well, let's
I read it this afternoon.
Okay, but I think you may remember, and when we get through it, well,
I mean, it goes through the, what's going on with whatever.
okay, so you're right. Not as full of actually very repetitious. So we're going
Right,
to
it's very repetitious. It does kind of go through the 12 tribes.
We're going to go through it very fast, or faster than normal than we've been reading, but let's hold off then. Let's see if you remember, or somebody else recognizes this when we get to the end of chapter 7. On the day that Moses finished setting up the tabernacle, he anointed and consecrated it and all its furnishings, as well as the altar and its utensils. When he anointed and consecrated them, the chieftains of Israel, the heads of their ancestral houses, namely the chieftains of the tribes, those who were in charge of enrollment, drew near and brought their offering before the Lord: 6 draft carts and 12 oxen, a cart for every 2 chieftains and an ox for each one, when they had brought them before the tabernacle. So this is what each chieftain brings for each one of the tribes. As Mike says, this is going to be a list of the tribes. The Lord said to Moses, accept these from them for the use in the service of the tent of meeting, and give them to the Levites according to their respective services. So again, how do they get the stuff to transport all this stuff? From the tribes, that each tribe brought their stuff. Moses took the carts and the oxen and gave them to the Levites. 2 carts and 4 oxen he gave to the Gershonites. So remember, they're divided to 3. So there's 12 tribes, each one's getting 4 oxen and 2 carts. 2 oxen per cart makes sense. Everything here makes sense so far, right? And 4 carts and 8 oxen he gave to the Murarites. Oh, wait, no, that's double. That's the double one, because it's going to be, you'll see the last one. But the Kohahites, he did not give any of these, since theirs was the service of the most sacred objects. Their porterage was by shoulder. That's right. So they have the guys who carry the curtains, the Gershonites, they have only 2 carts and oxen. The guys who carry the Murarites, who carry all the beams and all that stuff, they have twice as many. So, and the Kohahites don't have it. They have to carry their stuff. So again, it's the 12. 12 oxen, 6 carts. The chieftains also brought so we haven't gotten, by the way, to the repetitive stuff. The chieftains also brought the dedication offering to the altar upon its being anointed. As the chieftains were presenting their offerings before the altar, the Lord said to Moses, let them present their offerings for the dedication of the altar, 1 chieftain each day. Now we get to the repetition, because as we're going to see, each tribe comes forward. Now here we have a lot of different lists in the Bible of the tribes. In this one, Judah comes first. And the head of the tribe of Judah at the time was Nachshon, the son of Aminadab. And according to tradition, this is the guy, Nachshon, who wades in, it's not in the Torah, but it's in the Midrash. He wades up into the Sea of Reeds up to his head, to his nose, to show his faith in God. And that's what finally made the Red Sea part, was Nachshon ben Aminadab. He's the first guy to come forward here. So I like to say this is how he gets rewarded. So, as I said, now it gets redundant, a little repetitious as we go through each tribe. But you're also going to see now why I said what's special about this portion. You'll see in a sec. His offering, 1 silver bowl weighing 130 shekels and 1 silver basin of 70 shekels by the sanctuary weight, both filled with choice flour with oil mixed in for a meal offering, 1 gold ladle of 10 shekels filled with incense, 1 bull of the herd, 1 ram, and 1 lamb in its first year for a burnt offering, 1 goat for a sin offering, and for a sacrifice of well-being, 2 oxen, 5 rams, 5 he-goats, and 5 yearling lambs. That was the offering of Nachshon, son of Aminadab. So each tribe steps forth and makes their offering for the temple, for the tabernacle, for, again, holy service. That was the first day, day 1. On the second day, Nathanael, son of Tuar. And again, this is the list that we saw at the very beginning of the book of Numbers. There hasn't been a change. Nathanael, son of Tuar, chieftain of Issachar, made his offering. He presented as his offering 1 bowl weighing 130 shekels and 1 silver basin of 70 shekels by sanctuary weight, both filled with choice flour with oil mixed in for a meal offering. 1 gold ladle of 10 shekels filled with incense, 1 bull of the herd, 1 ram, 1 lamb in its first year for a burnt offering, 1 goat for a sin offering, and for his sacrifice of well-being, 2 oxen, 5 rams, 5 he-goats, and 5 yearling rams. That was the offering of Nathanael, the son of Tuar. Does anyone want to guess what is interesting about this Torah portion, this chapter? Nope. Okay. We're only on day 2. Now we're on day 3. On the third day, it was the chieftain of the Jezebeelites, Eliab, the son of Chalon. His offering, 1 silver bowl weighing 130 shekels and 1 silver basin of 70 shekels by the sanctuary weight, both filled with choice flour with oil mixed in for a meal offering. 1 gold ladle of 10 shekels filled with incense, 1 bull of the herd, 1 ram, 1 lamb in its first year for a burnt offering, 1 goat of sin offering, and for his sacrifice of well-being, 2 oxen, 5 rams, 5 he-goats, and 5 yearling lambs. That was the offering of Eliab, son of Chalon. On the 4th day, now we're quarter of the way through. On the 4th day, it was the chieftain of the Reubenites, the first, right, the oldest son, Elizur, son of Shedur. His offering, 1 silver bowl weighing 130 shekels and 1 silver basin of 70 shekels by the sanctuary weight, both filled with choice flour with oil mixed in for a meal offering, 1 gold ladle of 10 shekels filled with incense, 1 bull of the herd, 1 ram, 1 lamb in its first year for a burnt offering, 1 goat for a sin offering, and for his sacrifice of well-being, 2 oxen, 5 rams, 5 he-goats, and 5 yearling rams. That was the offering of Elizur, son of Shedur. On the 5th day, it was the chieftain of the Shimonites, Shelumiel, son of Zurishaddai. His offering, 1 silver bowl weighing 130 shekels and 1 silver basin of 70 shekels by sanctuary weight, both filled with choice flour with oil mixed in for a meal offering, and 1 gold ladle of 10 shekels filled with incense, 1 bull of the herd, 1 ram, 1 lamb in its first year for a burnt offering, 1 goat for a sin offering, for his sacrifice of well-being, 2 oxen, 5 rams, 5 he-goats, 5 yearling lambs. That was the offering of Shelumiel, son of Zurishaddai. We could say, Had Gad Yah.
Hot God. That's what we were saying. Juzuzim.
Yes. On the 6th day, it was the chieftain of the Gadites, Eliasaph, son of Deuel. His offering, 1 silver bowl weighing 130 shekels and 1 silver basin of 70 shekels by sanctuary weight, both filled with choice flour with oil mixed in for a meal offering, and 1 gold ladle of 10 shekels filled with incense, 1 bull of the herd, 1 ram, 1 lamb in its first year for a burnt offering, 1 goat for a sin offering, and for the sacrifice of well-being, 2 oxen, 5 rams, 5 he-goats, and 5 yearling lambs. That was the offering of Eliasaph, son of Deuel. That's halfway through. And notice, by the way, can you kind of see what I'm getting at right here? What verse are we in right now? Verse 49. On the seventh day, it was the chieftain of the Ephraimites, Elishama, the son of Amihud, his offering, one silver bowl weighing 130 shekels and one silver basin of 70 shekels by sanctuary weight, both filled with choice flour with oil mixed in for a meal offering, one gold ladle of 10 shekels filled with incense, one bull of the herd, one ram, one lamb in its first year for a burnt offering, one goat for a sin offering, and for his sacrifice of well-being, 2 oxen, 5 rams, 5 he-goats, and 5 yearling rams. That was the offering of Elishama, son of Amihud.
So Rabbi,
Yes.
I'm assuming this is the longest chapter in the Torah?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, now you got it. Now you got it, but it took you 56 verses to get there.
Well, no, I thought about it, but I was watching the Dodger game.
Are
And
they
it's so
winning?
repetitive.
Are they winning at least?
No, they're losing.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. On the 8th day, and how was Kershaw pitching good or not?
So. They're not hitting though. So go on with the long chapter.
On the 8th day, it was the chieftain of the Manassites, Gamliel, son of Pedazur. His offering, one silver bowl weighing 130 shekels and one silver basin of 70 shekels by sanctuary weight, both filled with choice flour with oil mixed in for a meal offering. One gold ladle of 10 shekels filled with incense, one bull of the herd, one ram, and one lamb in its first year for a burnt offering, one goat for a sin offering, and for his sacrifice of well-being, 2 oxen, 5 rams, 5 he-goats, and 5 yearling rams. That was the offering of Gamliel, son of Pedazur. On the 9th day was the chieftain of the Benjaminites, Abidan, son of Gideoni. His offering, one silver bowl weighing 130 shekels and one silver basin of 70 shekels by sanctuary weight, both filled with choice flour with oil mixed in for a meal offering, one gold ladle of 10 shekels filled with incense, one bull of the herd, one ram, and one lamb in its first year for a burnt offering, one goat for a sin offering, and for his sacrifice of well-being, 2 oxen, 5 rams, 5 he-goats, and 5 yearling rams. That was the offering of Abidan, son of Gideoni.
So Rabbi, a couple
Yes.
things.
Yes.
One, when does the partridge in the pear tree come in?
There's that too.
But on a serious
The
note,
12 nights.
but these people that they're mentioning here, do we know anything about them? And I'm
Well, we
assuming
read about them at the beginning, right? It's the
Right.
same. It's the same guys. Let's hold on. Let's finish it up. Let's get
Okay.
to the last one. On the 10th day, it was the chieftain of the Danites, Achiezer, son of Amishadai. His offering, one silver bowl weighing 130 shekels and one silver basin of 70 shekels by the sanctuary weight, both filled with choice flour with oil mixed in for a meal offering. One gold ladle of 10 shekels filled with incense, one bull of the herd, one ram, and one lamb in its first year for a burnt offering, one goat of for a sin offering, and for his sacrifice of well-being, 2 oxen, 5 rams, 5 he-goats, 5 yearling rams. That was the offering of Achiezer, son of Amishadai. And on the 11th day, it was the chieftain of the Asherites, Pagiel, son of Ochran. His offering, one silver bowl weighing 130 shekels and one silver basin of 70 shekels by the sanctuary weight, both filled with choice flour with oil mixed in for a meal offering, one gold ladle of 10 shekels filled with incense, one bull of the herd, one ram, one lamb in its first year for a burnt offering, one goat for a sin offering, and for his sacrifice of well-being, 2 oxen, 5 rams, 5 he-goats, and 5 yearling rams. That was the offering of Pagiel, son of Ochran. On the 12th day, it was the chieftain of the Naphtalites, Achirah, son of Enan. His offering, one silver bowl weighing 130 shekels and one silver basin of 70 shekels by sanctuary weight, both filled with choice flour with oil mixed in for a meal offering. One gold ladle of 10 shekels filled with incense, one bull of the herd, one ram, and one lamb in its first year for a burnt offering, one goat for a sin offering, and for his sacrifice of well-being, 2 oxen, 5 rams, 5 he-goats, and 5 yearling rams. That was the offering of Achirah, son of Enan. This was the dedication, right? So we had 12 tribes, each one in each day brought forward their dedication, the same exact thing. And you could say, oh my gosh, that was so repetitive. Well, I will tell you, as they were bringing it up on that first day, or even again, if they had a yearly reading of this, why is this so important? It's important if you're from the Gadites, what are you going to say? We're not included. We didn't have our stuff listed. Our ancestor made a donation to the temple of these things. And it's still important that these people had their ancestors, the pride of their ancestor, and literally hearing this would have made them feel like, again, we're being counted. And where did this, I mean, this goes back to the beginning of last week's Torah portion with numbers, with the numbering. is that as much as the tribes are being numbered here at the end of this second chapter, Naso, it's the tribes that come together to actually lay down their stuff, which is being numbered, but what's being counted, their offering. It's not the people that are being counted and being accounted for. It's their offering and the fact that they did something for the temple, that they did something for the Mishkan, for the holy place, that each one of these tribes gave the exact same thing. Not one tribe gave less or more. Every tribe, no matter how many people they had, gave the same thing, and each tribe was counted on. And again, it's a really important message because, again, as much as we in our country try to, we talk about, what people do or what states do, oftentimes we look at a state and we say, well, what are they taking? How much tax dollars go to that state? How much are they putting back in? The interesting thing is when you do a roll call of these, of the states, when you do it at a convention, or you do it when you see, a group of the states together, it makes you realize again that this is one country. We're one country that as much, and again, when we have things like the Senate, where every senator has equal value, there's a real interesting thing, a dynamic there, which means that you can be a senator from a small state, but still have a lot of power because your vote has the same amount of power as the guy or the woman from, California. I'm not going to tell you a secret. You all know it. Joe Manchin is probably the most powerful man in the Senate. Yeah. And he represents West Virginia. So, it's very interesting how this type of thing that goes on, and really, again, it really only goes on in the Senate. Or again, when we do roll calls or times where we're seeing all the states, the roll call at the convention is not really great because the bigger states get more noise, but seeing all the states present is pretty amazing. And again, maybe when you're at the Olympics and you see each country come forward with their flag and their group, but again, you look at the big countries and you see the size differences. So there's that, and again, they did that during the tribes were there, and you could see how big they were. But when they came to dedicate the temple, everybody was equal. Every tribe had the exact same power. And if you were from a little tribe, if you were from the Reubenites, at this moment, you're no different than the Judites or the Ephraimites. You're no different from those other people. And as much as those tribes are bigger land and had more people, at that moment, you're all equal. And I think that the repetition of it when it was first done, and the reason why we keep going back to it, is it showed the unification of the tribes. That even though each one had their own agenda, they had their own issues, that at least in the temple, at least in the tabernacle and the Mishkan, they were all equal at this point. And unfortunately, as we know from Israelite history, they sometimes fought with each other. And the Bible tells us the tribe of Benjamin went to war against everybody, this little tribe. And they end up doing really well, by the way, right? It's right after the story of Samson. We have the story of the Benjaminites, chapter 19 in Judges. That's a pretty disturbing story, but the story is because it's civil war. But there was a time, at least in the Mishkan, where the tribes were all counted and they were all equal in what they dedicated. So again, we have 80. Well, we're not even done. We have 2 more verses. Silver per bowl. Well, this was dedication for the
Rabbi.
altar. Yeah.
Real quick, what's weird about your version of the Torah and what we're using? I'm assuming Harvey's the same way. We're actually off on verses. Your 87 is actually our 84.
Yeah, there's a slightly different break in some versions of the Bible. Remember, the chapters and verses are put in by Christian.
Right, but I'm just talking about the ones we use in synagogue is different than what we're looking at.
And what's also interesting is you just notice is that there's a break right here. Well, it still finishes with chapter 80 with the verse 89, right?
Yeah, actually it does.
Yeah.
Huh, okay.
I think I'm not sure what happened here online. I think that if you see this
yeah.
I think it's the way they broke it, the way they broke it online, the way they broke it up.
Yeah, it's not a big deal. I just wanted to bring that
It
out.
always comes down to 89 verses.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep. So after the last person's mentioned, I'm getting feedback from somebody.
Scott, it's from Scott.
No, it's not.
Yeah, it is.
It is?
Scott's- Yeah, Scott's on.
Yeah, but he's been on the whole time.
Yeah, but he's not been muted, but he's not unmuted. He's now unmuted.
Oh, you're muted.
Been muted for the whole time.
Huh. All right. Hold on one second.
So is this part of the critical tribe theory then?
Yes, it's critical tribe theory. No, but it's funny because if you were the tribe, if you're waiting for your tribe to be mentioned, it must have been exciting when they got mentioned. And they're all equal. Every one of them was equal in this moment. Every one of the tribes was equal. And you only get that, by the way, honestly, when you list it all out like this. So as much as it's repetitious, the reality is that each day that tribe was their day, it was their day. It was special for them. Again, all equal. This was the dedication offering from the chieftains of Israel, being anointed. 12 silver bowls, 12 silver basins, 12 gold ladles, 12. Makes sense. Each tribe had theirs. Silver per bowl, 130. We read this every time. Per basin, 70. Total silver for vessels, right? You multiply 200 times 12. You don't have to be Harvey Kale to know that that's 2,400 shekels. 2,400 shekels was a lot of money, a lot of value in silver. 12 gold ladles filled with incense, 10 sanctuary shekels per ladle. That would come out, of course, to total of the gold ladles, 120. Total herd animals for burnt offerings, 12 bulls, 12 rams, yearling lambs, 12, with their proper meal offerings. Of goats for sin offerings, 12. But as you can do the math, the total of the herd animals for sacrifices of well-being, however, right, this was a little bit more, 2 per tribe. 24 bulls of rams, 65 for each. Of he-goats, 65 again for each. Of yearling lambs, 60. That was the dedication offer for the altar after its anointing. So again, there is a individual number, and then they gave us the total number. Now, again, is it necessary? Well, again, when you're looking at the fact that every person, every tribe, every offering was necessary for this total, yeah, it's necessary, because it reminds us that there was a collective value to this too. And it was quite a collective value. I mean, this is an interesting portion because it reminds us that every tribe had, at least at some level, was counted equally amongst the holiest place. When Moses went to the tent of meeting to speak with him, meaning God, he would hear the voice addressing him from above the cover that was on the top of the ark of the path. Between the two cherubim, thus he spoke to him. And that is the end of the chapter. It's the end of the portion, but it's also to some extent the end of those two portions, which began with the tribes being enumerated. And the next portion, what we'll read next week, is going off in a much different direction. But if we go back to the very beginning of Numbers, when we go back to the very beginning, this is going back. I haven't gone, here it is. Take a census of the whole Israelite community, right? You and Aaron by their groups, and these are their names. Reuben, son of El. So again, the names are given in a different order here at the beginning, from oldest tribes to, not quite, but kind of from oldest to youngest, except for the Dan and Asher and Gad and Naphtali. The children of Bilhah and Zilpah come at the end. It's almost like, well, you guys are the sons of the extra wives. Benjamin, again, being the youngest, and then it goes to the 4 tribes that are the descendants of the concubines of Bilhah and Zilpah. But but here we have them mentioned. And then at the end, we have their offerings that each one of them brought up. So there's a bookend. There's a feeling of again, kind of coming back to the beginning of Numbers. And again, it goes, it's not like we're done talking about the Mishkan. The next chapter in Bahalotcha is about the menorahs and about the lighting and the way that things were illuminated. And we read about that at Hanukkah. We read Bahalotcha. We read the menorah part again as a reading, as an extra reading during Hanukkah. But this portion again reminds us of the offerings, and again, it's a powerful reminder that each tribe counted. It begins with this counting, and then it ends not with them being counted, but with them making an offering, each one of value. So this was Torah brought to you from Las Vegas tonight. And again, it was really great having Scott here. Scott was a part of our classes from the very beginning. It's hard to believe it's 21 years ago. And it's really been a long time. But the reason that I'm here in Vegas celebrating with him is that his daughter, Vanessa, is celebrating her graduation from the Adelson Education Campus from the Adelson School here in Las Vegas, which again is an amazing Jewish day school. It's K through 12. Actually, it has a preschool too, but it's a school that is dedicated to Jewish values, and it's a kosher campus. It's a really amazing campus. I was there a few years ago. It's hard to believe it was 5 years ago now. I celebrated her bat mitzvah. We did the bat mitzvah from their beautiful chapel, and it's a really great celebration. And for us, and for people who've known Vanessa, who's at our preschool, our Temple Beth Me preschool, we take full credit for her becoming valedictorian, for her achieving that. It's not, I'm joking, it's not our preschool. It was a lot of hard work and a lot of hard work by her parents. But yes, Vanessa is the valedictorian of Adelson School. And so we're very, very proud of her. And what's most amazing about that story is that that's amazing by itself, but it's like a miracle that's been enhanced because Scott and his wife Sean adopted Vanessa from the Soviet Union. And I remember when I helped them first bring her there. I wrote a letter of recommendation for them, and I knew them already. It's not like I didn't know them, and I didn't know that I knew they'd be good parents. They had 2 older children that they raised, and they're very really wonderful and talented and intelligent kids as well. But I wrote this letter wholeheartedly for them, knowing that they'd be great parents. And it's great when you actually, get a return like that, because Vanessa is going to continue to do great things. But it's amazing to think what her life would have been like if she had been in the Soviet Union. The miracle that one, couple has to change a life is, it's just astounding. So it's one of those things where you got to step back and just say, what a miracle, because I don't need to tell you, people knew, they saw it with their own eyes, what life was like for orphans in the Soviet Union, 18, 20 years ago. And by the way, as amazing as the Voltas are, they were not the only family from our temple who adopted children from the Soviet Union, from the former Soviet Union. We've got several kids who have become bar and bat mitzvah in our shul, have gone on to be wonderful young people. Actually, now that I'm thinking about it, they were all boys except for Vanessa. I don't think any of them else were girls, but they were all boys, and a lot of them, they're living in different places. And I'm just telling you, the hell that these kids were in was the closest thing to hell that you could have for a child. So it is a real story of redemption, and like the highest mitzvah of taking in a child and helping them. So as we usually say, that's a straight ticket to heaven when you do that. So taking care of the orphan, as we talked about, I think yesterday on Tuesday, we actually read about the fact that giving tzedakah and taking care of the orphans is what, kind of like, if you can do those things, maybe the most accessible one is giving tzedakah. The hardest one might be taking in a life and raising it. But again, we're very grateful very appreciative of what Scott and Sean did together to help raise a wonderful kid. So I just want to finish with that. It's good news, and I'm her godfather. I take no credit. I can take no other credit other than I've gotten to share in a lot of nachas and a lot of good stuff from her. And she set records in swimming. Not only is she a great student, but she set records in swimming at Adelson. And they have an amazing pool, by the way. You should see this facility. It's better than some colleges. I'm not joking. The Adelsons have been so gracious and generous with the school that it is breathtaking. So that's a really good thing. Oh, by the way, I want to say we're going to send out an email. We have another young person in our temple we're very proud of right now too, Ari Schneider, who celebrated his bar mitzvah about 3 or 4 years ago. He was our newest Eagle Scout in our synagogue. So another great achievement for one of our young people in high school is Ari's Eagle Scout. I'm going to send out an email in the next couple of days congratulating him and his family. He's actually a 3rd generation Eagle Scout. His father was an Eagle Scout and his grandfather. And we know, of course, that Lee was an Eagle Scout as well, right?
Yes.
Yes, he
So
was.
it is I'm very proud of our Eagle Scouts. And every time we've had, and I've been very lucky. We've had 5
Hey,
Eagle Scouts.
Rabbi, I'm an eagle.
You love Eagles, that's right. And you do a lot of great things, Mike, but I'm sorry, you never became an Eagle Scout. Look,
But I look at my eagles and I scout them out.
I never
I
went
scout
past,
out the eagles.
I never went past Weebelo, so it's okay. But
I never
will
was
tell
in
you-
Boy Scouts.
I will tell you that you do a lot of other good mitzvahs, but
I was an Indian guy.
there you go. But and by the way, it's a perfect transition out. So reading about our tribes, we're going to be reading about our scouts, not next week, but the week after in Shlach Lecha, we read about the scouts. There were some good scouts and there were some not good scouts. Actually, most of them weren't so good, but we are going to get into parts of Numbers that are a lot more narrative today. Last week and today were much more numbers and details and the tabernacle stuff. But the next couple of weeks, we start to get into some narrative, not all of next week, whole part, and then the rest of Numbers, a lot more narrative. We get back to stories and get back to some more narrative than probably we even have until you have to go all the way back to the beginning of Exodus. Because remember, the last part of Exodus is the Mishkan, the constructions, the Truma and Tetzaveh, and Vayakhel Pekudei are all kind of descriptions of that. So we're going to go back to some stories and some lessons and some other stuff. But again, everybody stay good, stay healthy. As we said, keep praying and keep strong for Israel right now. And
Amen. Amen.
Make sure
Gotta watch out for Israel.
we got to make sure that people are not giving up hope. A lot of bullying, a lot of hard stuff, as I said before, especially for our young people, and that's got to stop. So again, thank you everybody for being here, and
Thank you, Rabbi.
blessings to you from Vegas. Take care, everybody. Thanks for being here tonight.
Thank you, Reb.
All right, bye-bye.